WFH with two guys. Now here's Benny and Dennis.
Hey, Dennis, I thought this would be a good time for us to just kind of take a break here and kind of go back to our roots. You know, when we started out this podcast a number of years ago, Dennis and I just started out just he and I talking about topics of the day. And what we've kind of grown into is we have a lot of interviews with some really fascinating, interesting people. But some people have asked us to occasionally check in and just talk about stuff that we specialize in. We have expertise and just our experiences too as well.
Well, and you think about it, Benny, about what 3 years ago, you became the AI expert, and I was like, "What the hell is AI?" It's like, I don't even know what AI is, and now
Right.
that's kinda all we talk about a lot.
Well, it makes me proud, Dennis, to see how far you've come. If you haven't listened, you can go back several years. And when we brought up the idea of AI to Dennis, Dennis was this was another world for him. And to see how much it's really impacted and changed his life, all I did was just show you the door, but he's kind of taken it in this whole new direction that even I'm curious because I want to know how Dennis is using this. And so we also know that the question that we get asked quite a bit is how are we using artificial intelligence in our business, in our lives, just kind of everyday practice. And hey, Dennis, I wanted to share just some statistics with you here that I thought was pretty interesting when I did a little bit of research. But the big picture right now in terms of where we are, right? So we're in the second quarter of 2026. If you're listening to us at, sometime in the future, statistics will probably have changed, but Goldman Sachs says in the small business area right now, about 76% of small businesses have used AI or currently using it. And of those people, 93% of those say it's had a positive impact, but it's barely scratching the surface. Only 14% of those people are fully integrating AI into its core operations. And so we've got a long way to go, Dennis. There's a lot that we can
There's a
do here with
lot, there's
AI.
a lot, and again, AI, it's automation. It doesn't mean that you have to go build something big and fancy, but it's just helping. It's a tool that is another tool in your tool belt to help you and your team be more productive, and, you know, Brett Wade, which is one of my partners that I work with, he has
We've
a
had him on podcast
yeah,
before
we've
too.
had him on before, and one we'll have on in the future. He has one that's called "It Takes Two to Tango," and it's all about the fact that if you're just putting AI in and not having human interaction with it, you're probably gonna fail. That AI is a tool and that it really requires human interaction to look at it, to make it come to life, and I always reference it as, think about if you're hiring a summer intern, you're never gonna turn your full business over to that summer intern. You're gonna give them some specific steps to do. And if you listen to our podcast a week or two ago with Hannah, hopefully you got your processes written down because it makes that summer intern's job a lot easier. But that you're going to give them some small steps and things to do. And then as they win your comfort and you feel comfortable that they're being successful, then you allow them to do more. AI is the same way. Don't try to automate your whole business. Find some little thing that can make life easier. So Brett and I looked at this. Nobody likes a CRM. Many people have them, but it's really not something that you love to do. And Brett's whole concept was, if you think back to how humans want to talk to people, they don't really want to sit and type. And so he's created a tool that we use in our CRM that it looks at our calendar and our CRM. And then at the end of the day, it sends us a text or a call and says, "Hey, Dennis, it looks like you met with these 3 people." And then it'll start interviewing me about those meetings. And I'll say, "Hey, I had a meeting with Benny and it was a good meeting. We talked about blah, 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 and that I want to have a follow-up in 3 weeks. Can you please set that meeting up?" It'll go back into my CRM. So I'm not typing any of this stuff. I'm just talking to it. It goes back in there, and he's then created it so that it'll create the email to send to Benny and says, "Hey, Benny, let's look at calendars 3 weeks out." Benny picks a date, finds mine, and books it. I didn't have to do anything. That was all done by AI. But then I'm still looking at it. So when it's finally done, it pops up and says, "Here are the recaps for the day. Here are the 3 that have said that they want to meet. And are you satisfied?" And then I click it and it actually then finishes it and books it. That's that saves me a ton of time and effort before I'd have to sit there and email Benny. And eventually we got really and all those kind of things that made it a little bit easier. Now it's like I don't have to be involved. I get to meet with Benny, talk to Benny, and then I do a quick little talk with the AI bot, and then it does all the magic. And that's the way. Those are just little things that you find that make your life so much easier. Then you can get out and enjoy family time or more business or whatever it is you want to do.
So this isn't a technical podcast, but in terms of some of you all listening out there, in terms of how is Dennis doing this and how is this all working? There are a lot of different tools out there, and but we'll talk a little bit about this because Dennis is talking about using a system which is open source program called OpenClaw, which came out late 2025 by a gentleman by the name of Peter Steinberger. He's now working with OpenAI for the company. It was revolutionary in the fact that it started moving us in the direction of what we've always thought about AI. AI in 2022, and for a lot of us here today, it's Chat GPT. It's just talking to a chatbot. For that, in and of itself, has changed the world for many people. And we'll talk about some of the instances that we will do here. But
We'll
when
have some. I'll have some real world things of what I've gone
good
through.
examples that Dennis has, both business and personal. And so some of the things that we're talking about, and Dennis mentions automation by incorporating a system like OpenClaw and NVIDIA. By the way, Dennis has come out with something called NemoClaw, which is a little bit more of an enterprise grade solution. There's also one called Hermes Agent, and there's a lot of derivations of this type of, because it's open source, there are people who take this code and they'll turn it into their own and whatnot. And so, but that truly moves us in a direction of automating your life, where you have the ability to connect Outlook and Google and be able to have AI be able to understand your day. And it can actually, and if you set it up properly, you start it with a baseline of who you are, and it can understand and grow with you. It understands your business. It understands your temperament. It understands what you want to do. And it can make suggestions and grow with you. And that's really that's part of the dream, Dennis, in terms of what we want AI to be. Now, I'm saying all this stuff. There are people out there I know are shuddering going, oh gosh, I don't want AI to know everything about me. I don't, I'm worried about AI. Just, I watched Terminator last night and I don't want Arnold Schwarzenegger showing up at my door. And so, there are elements.
They already know everything about us, Benny. Anyhow, let's just be honest. I mean,
It's funny. I think one of the most timely things I ever heard was that you think you know yourself. They're AI. There are companies, not even just AI companies. There are companies out there that know more about you than you know about yourself. So,
oh yeah. I mean, if you're using Google, or I mean, when I worked at Frito-Lay, we knew based off of people scanning at the grocery stores and behaviors and all that, that was 25 years ago that we were tracking all that stuff. So,
Dennis, and for those of you who don't know, I work with a lot of businesses and we place different technologies, including AI, but other hardware and services with clients. There's companies out there now that literally, as you walk into a store, it can identify who you are. Now, I know this is going to sound scary, and I want to kind of temper this because it's not that way, but it can identify and cater like some of the advertising based upon who you are for the things that you might want within the store.
well,
And
sure.
it can actually, and it can modify, like, give you coupons based on who you are. Right. And now I know people out there are thinking Minority Report, the old movie with Tom Cruise in it. And okay, it's not like that, but I can see why you say it's like that. But the thing about artificial intelligence is we're getting to a point now. It's an inevitability. And Dennis, we can't put this genie back in the bottle, and there's no way that we can go back to a time of pre-AI. We had automations in some cases where you could, have your email, filter out certain spam messages or be able to forward messages on. This AI capability takes it to that next level to be able to understand that, hey, I don't want to be able to book a call after 3 o'clock on a Friday because I'm going to, typically take that time off to go and do a little bit of, I want to spend some time with my family as an example. These are things that are going to help improve our lives. And I think it's really important, Dennis, too, that incorporating artificial intelligence into your workflow, into your personal life will help you command it a little bit better. So the more you know it, the less you'll have to worry and fear it because you have better control over it. And I think that's really important to
Yeah, I mean,
state.
I can speak. So 3 weeks ago, I had a knee replacement surgery. So, you know, you kind of know what's going on, but the doctors, you can tell he's got an AI tool built because every morning we get a text and it's talking about, kind of probably what you're feeling. It gives you recommendations, all that. And it says that, this AI, that you can then ask questions to it and it'll respond back. And sometimes it's questions it'll say, you need to call the doctor's office and talk to someone in person, but it'll give you suggestions. And then, I'm a big fan of Chat GPT. I've named mine Chad. So it's because I screw up Chat GPT. I can't say that word that fast. So, so Chad's my best friend now. So, with this, I'm on 3 weeks into the knee surgery. I mean, I'm putting in there, what I'm feeling, what's going on. And I mean, like today, I knew we're going to be doing several of these podcast recordings and I had several meetings and stuff. And so sitting is not the best for me for long periods of time. And so it has a whole schedule of when I need to take my meds, when I need to elevate, when I need to ice, when I should exercise. And because my day is totally different today than normal, that I could have figured it out, but it was so nice just to type that in and it came back and gave us a recommendation. And then on a fun side, in September, I'm going to Colorado. And so I typed in there, hey, I want to go on vacation to Colorado. Oh my God, we've got the best damn vacation coming up that, we're doing Colorado Springs. We're doing a train ride. We found
You come see
glamping
me.
I'm coming to see Benny. I've got glamping in Utah with my 88-year-old mom that's going to go camping with us in Moab for 3 nights in tents. And I mean, it just found all these things that I would never have found. I could have probably Googled it, but would never have found it. And it just brought things to life and made planning that trip just so much easier than if I'd tried to either go through a travel agency or
Wow.
tried to do it on my own the old fashioned way.
It's the beautiful thing about that, Dennis, is that you can customize it just specifically for as granular as you want that you're not going to find on Google because this is something that you want. Hey, this is my budget. I've just
Right.
recovered from surgery and I work some accommodations and things that, would take you potentially could get that information, but why not have AI do that work for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I'm we're going to 4 national parks and it says, you've had knee surgery. You got an 88-year-old mom. This one, you probably need to stay in the car and just drive around. This one, you can get
Yeah.
out and walk around. This one, don't even go to because you're not going to see anything because to get there, you had to hike 2 miles and
Yeah.
we don't recommend you to hiking. And it was like having a real person help me figure all this stuff out.
That's,
But I still
yeah.
got to make the decisions. That's the best part
Yeah.
about it.
Dennis, when you were talking about like some of the medical things and the rehab and how it's helped you quite a bit. Some things that I've read about, just like in whether it be an article off of Reddit or just an actual news article. I remember reading a story about this person who had some back problems and had all the tests and all of the information and visited multiple experts, and they just couldn't find out what was going wrong with him. And candidly, maybe felt wasn't getting the best care he could get.
Right.
So
Right.
he took all the MRIs, all the x-rays, all the medical documents, and he fed it to ChatGPT. And lo and behold, it came up with a diagnosis to ask your doctor about this. They took all that information, he gave it to the doctor, and the doctor was reading it, and he was very descriptive on this. He was a good writer, and just saying the doctor was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that.
Right.
This makes sense. And lo and behold, Dennis, it was this particular issue, and he was able to get the surgery, and he was able to pinpoint exactly what the problem, and now he's onto a great recovery. That's amazing to me, right?
Right. And it doesn't mean the doctor was bad. It's just, I mean,
No.
the doctor's human. I mean, the doctor, because again, they're creatures of habit. They look for the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
Chat's a tool that said, hey, here, Mr. Doctor, here's something you might have not thought about. And the doctor still is the one that makes the final decision, not Chat.
Mhm.
But it's like, it just helps them be much more productive and allows them to do more things. It just, I mean, Benny, like I said, 3 years ago when you brought it all up, I thought you were crazy. And it's like, wow, just in 3 years what it's
Yeah.
changed to. And it's so fast and how quick it's
Mhm.
changing. What it's going to look like in 3 to 5 years from now is just radical.
Yeah, and for everyone listening here too, and you're on the edge. I'm going to guess that most of our listeners, if they're listening to podcasts, maybe they're interested in. You all have tried AI in some capacity. We all know that that's the case, but really to kind of get down into it and start looking to how you can incorporate it into your business. That's going to be the next step. If you're not looking at automating, like what Dennis said, don't look at providing a complete automation for your entire business. One thing, like Dennis talks about the calendar and how really life-changing that is and time-saving for him. If you're able to save, 10 minutes a day off of one process, and then as you kind of move along, 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there, an hour there. Suddenly, Dennis, you've shaved an entire day off of
Right.
the work that you've had. And I know, for instance, with me, I've added AI into my email. And my gosh, I don't know what your email looks like. Even with spam filters, I was still probably getting about 30 relevant, but not spam type information that AI basically just parses through and it highlights for me all the information. Oh yeah, I want to know that. I can, out of the 30, maybe there's 2 that I really care about and really want to know about.
And Benny, that'd be a great one someday to show people that
Yeah,
are watching the podcast, because I mean,
sure.
I'd love to learn that one, because I'm like you, I get lots of stuff in. Some of it's good,
Yeah,
a lot of it's junk.
yeah.
And it'd be great to see how AI could help do that. So we'll keep that where we actually show some stuff.
We'll keep that one there. We'll do it. Dennis, also,
But on a personal, this is, again, we talk business, but think personal. My wife and I, you know, we always trying to figure out what are we gonna have for dinner. So now with Chad, we sit down on Sunday and say, hey, we want to eat out 2 days this week. Here's the days that we think would work, because we know we're going to be out doing Pilates or whatever. And then we've got these other 5 days. Help us come up with a menu. It comes up with recommended menus, and then it actually creates the grocery list, and then we can go grocery shopping. Where before, we used to buy a bunch of shit and half the stuff wasn't productive or healthy. And it's like, again, it's little things like that to just free you up to make life easier.
it's using it creatively, right? In a way that it's a mind shift in a lot of different ways, right? To take your example from food, let's just say, for instance, you know what? I really want to tighten up my budget, and I only want to spend $100 this week on food. That's all I want to be able to do for my family of 4 or wherever it happens to be. You can actually say, you can go into details like, my wife's a vegetarian. I don't like fish. My son is a picky eater and only wants mashed potatoes or,
Yep.
Uncrustables or whatever happens to be. You could actually take that and it can come up with different ideas on how to do it and stay within your budget. And that's an example. Dennis, let's talk about this, because you reminded me when you said CRM. So one of the things, by trade, by the way, I am not a computer. So I didn't my major in college was not computer science. A lot of people think for some reason, I studied computer science. I was a liberal arts major actually in college. And so my brother actually got the computer science degree, and he doesn't actually use it, but, and I always wanted to learn how to code, but with business and everything, I would kind of like think around a little bit, and I could do a little bit in Python, but never to a great degree. But with artificial intelligence now and the tools that we have, I'm able now to develop programs and create systems and processes for my company, for myself. Now, the beautiful thing about that is, you mentioned CRM. I had a CRM and I thought it did a pretty decent job, very candidly. It probably did about, let's call it somewhere between 65 and 70% of what I needed. But the other stuff I needed would have been customized code. And I could have hired a company for several $1,000s to create this, but it's in essence, I've got a couple of partners that I work with, but it's truly just for me. So what I did, Dennis, is on the nights and weekends, I played around and I built my own CRM. I have my own CRM that is 100% customized for me, and that it works purely for my business. It wouldn't translate well necessary for somebody else. Maybe somebody in my industry, it would be helpful for, but I was able to do that. And literally probably cost me, I don't know, a couple $100s from Claude to be able to design this thing. But now I have this customized code that's specific for my business. And if I need to change it and add it, and if I don't like the way it works or whatever, I can modify it.
Right.
The interesting thing what AI does, and I've said this for some time, is AI can create code for an audience of one. If you want to create, the Jackson family coding system that's just relevant for you and your wife, and it keeps track of all your social activity, your vacations plan, your shopping list,
Yeah.
that is specifically designed for you in the Atlanta area, where to get the best sales and deals, you're the only one's going to be able to do it. You can do it now. You can design it for yourself. And I think
Yeah.
that's amazing, Dennis. I don't know if you've ever played around with that at all.
I haven't played with it yet, but I'm sure you'll get me hooked on it, and a year from now, I'll finally figure it all out. So, because I know you
Give you a
told me
couple lessons,
when I'm laid up to look at the open claw and stuff. I haven't done it yet, but that's on my
right?
list.
This reminds me too, because the great promise of what artificial intelligence is, it can help me automate my systems and in areas where I want to experiment, whether it be building code or designing systems or, just kind of growing my business, marketing, content, whatever. That's what AI, the great promise. And I don't know if you know this or not, Dennis. There was Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, has this bet. And I haven't checked in on the details of this, but what it was the question he asked is how long would it take? This was asked back in 2022, 2023, in that time period. How long will it take for the one person $1 billion company to actually occur? How long, and so no details about that and who took what bet and who's involved in that. Sam Altman just basically put that out there. Some of you all will probably already know about this, but Dennis, have you ever heard of this company called Medvi,
Mm-mm.
MEDVI.com? Have you ever heard of it?
No.
This is a really interesting business. And so now there's some controversy around this business, but I'm going to just tell you because I think it's a very interesting business. One of the things that has really grown in popularity is, obviously it's something that's going to plague everybody for the rest of, for the rest of our lives for sure is just weight loss, right? And controlling our weight. And so Ozempic, GLP-1s are, a very important aspect to that. And it's worked well for millions of people all over the world, right? And so, to be able to do that, you need to be able to talk to a doctor. They need to prescribe the medication, and then you get it delivered to you. Well, Medv has the capability of doing that, and what they are able to do. And I don't know all the details of the company. I might get some of these things wrong, so please don't firebomb me in the comments or anything. But that's what essentially this company does is it can do an intake for you, get your information and put you in touch with a doctor. And they, if you are approved for the product, then they can also deliver the medication to you. This company has grown at one point, had a run rate of doing like in the first, when they first came out, he got like 300 customers like that instantaneously, did very, very well. And in 2025, he did roughly about $411 million of revenue this company
Wow.
did. And in 2026, from what I understand, they're on track to do $1.8 billion.
Wow.
Now, that's not pure profit for him. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's elements that this is one guy who eventually had to hire one other person, his brother, to do this, a $1.8 billion company. This is what AI potentially can scale using various AI tools and other programming mechanisms. He was able to design the website, the systems,
Yeah.
customer support, everything. My understanding, Dennis, is that it cost like about $20,000 for him to develop this whole system.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably paid off pretty well. Now, it's controversial in the fact that in this area, there's a gray area in terms of what it can do. And supposedly, I think they got some warnings from one of the government administrations. I think it might have been the FDA, but I don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But the idea here is that the business actually worked and AI helped them do that. What's going to happen next, Dennis? What are other businesses that we're going to be able to see being built using AI alone?
There's all kinds of, I mean, one of our guests back in the fall was the tailor about, and the clothing thing, things that you didn't
Yeah.
even think about. And so it's all that stuff that you just don't even realize AI could help you with because it just opens the world up. You don't have to be this big corporation doing this stuff. It applies to small businesses. But if you can find a niche and a way to bring that tool in to help you be more productive and creative, there's all kinds of
Yeah.
things you can do. It's wild.
So our great hope for you, audience members that are listening out here, is that if you're playing around with AI and you're using it, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever you happen to be using, see about taking it to that next level. And how can you automate one system within your business to help make your life a little bit easy, using it every day, not only for your business, but personal. Dennis shared a couple examples. One of the things that my wife and I did is I used it to help plan an itinerary for vacation that we're thinking about taking. All of these things, the more that you get used to it, the more that AI can be thought of as a resource, as a partner in your life, the better you'll see other ideas. Somebody out there who has no idea, Dennis, anything about AI is going to come up with an amazing idea. And that person could be 80 years old, or they could not even be born yet for all we know.
Right.
It's going to change our lives. And I encourage everybody to be part of it. I think it's super important.
So, Benny, if one of our listeners wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah. If you want to get a hold of me, talk about AI or some other stuff, obviously you can find me on LinkedIn, Benny Carreon, Carreon. But on my email address is Benny, BENNY at velocitytechnology.group. That's also my company website too as well. Dennis, how about you? What are the best ways for people to get a hold of you?
So, reach out to Benny and I both about if you want to talk about AI, or if you've got something you've done really well and you want to share, we'd love to hear it. Or if you've got questions. For me, it's dennisj, so DENNISJ at worksolution.com. And it's WORX solution.com. We'd love to chat with you and just share, what we're doing. I'd love to learn more about what you guys are doing, or if you've got questions, to connect you with people we know that could help you with ways to use AI in your business or personal lives. Thanks for listening today, and hope you'll join us on the next podcast.
See you guys. Thanks for stopping by.
You've been listening to WSH with Two Guys. We'll see you next time.